you're up there trying to act like you're some Ivy League scholar. He said, you're not an Ivy League scholar. You're from Midland, Texas. You walk like it, you talk like it. And people are either going to like you for what you are, or they're not going to like you at all. But for God's sake, don't try to be something you're not.
From growing up on a farm to building successful companies like Primo Water and Blue Rhino, a visionary who turns ideas into billion-dollar companies, Billy Prim.
I did a little bit of owner financing when you were younger to start off. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how that positively impacted your journey?
Yeah, well, I basically didn't have a lot of capital, but I knew I wanted to start a business. I wanted to be in business. I wanted to own a business. And I went to Wake Forest MBA school, and it was there that I basically learned how to read a balance sheet, understand how to finance businesses, and I learned that you could use someone else's equity to finance your business. And so I went into the petroleum distribution business, and I started looking for people who were ready to retire that would leave part of their equity in the business, so then I could get financing based and use their equity for the equity part of the financing to buy their business. And so I was able to put 3 or 4 deals like that together to really to build a decent sized petroleum distribution company.
Yeah, and I've doing real estate, I've came upon one deal like that, the owner financing. They were looking to retire. It didn't end up working out, but I'm still constantly looking for something like that to try and start my journey.
It's not easy to find, and you know, they have to believe in you. You have to have a good plan about how you're going to nurture their business to make sure that it's going to be there in the future. So that's again selling yourself, having those disciplines I talked about, and they've got to be able to see that in you.
And having all of that, when hard times come, how do you remain calm in the eye of the storm?
Yeah, it is really important that a leader is calm when things are really distressful to others, because every employee is looking at you, and I knew that. So I always told myself that we could lose Walmart, who's our largest customer. We could get the call that, hey, we're no longer doing business with you, Primo or Blue Rhino or whoever. And I was determined that I would go into that office and I would have the same attitude that day and treat everybody the same way as if it was just a normal day. And I think that's important because people will share things with you if they know the type of reaction they're going to get. If you're always consistent, treat people with respect and so on, no matter the situation, they'll share things with you. But if they know that they're going to be, yelled at, or it's going to be a terrible confrontation, they're not going to share things with you. So I think it's so important that a leader learn to be consistent. And that's where, for me, it's grounded in my faith. It's grounded in the way I do things. It's the way I start my day, discipline, and go there. And I'm going to have a good day. It don't matter if we have bad news, good news, whatever. We're gonna take it in stride.
So is that how you start your day? Praying or reading the Bible?
I do. I try to get up and read some scripture in the morning. Try to understand that and think about what God's done for me, and then I try to start my day with a little exercise to get my bloodstream going. And I think that disciplined approach to starting each day, it's worked well for me. It's my way. Everybody else has to find their own way.
No, I have a very similar start to my day. I read the scripture and then I pray and then I work out. On days when you can't understand what the Bible is saying, like you get done reading it and you're like, what did I just read? How do you do you just keep on reading or do you come back to it? Because I'm struggling with that. I'm like, I don't know what I just read.
Yeah, well.
At Juliant, we're with you at every milestone, and your brightest dreams never have to fade. At Juliant, we help you shine. That's brighter banking. Juliant Federal Credit Union.
I used to go to Google, now I go to ChatGPT and ask. And so I always get some interesting answers by going and searching. And that's one of the things that's always fun, to search. And you'll have 2 or 3 different people who have given their thoughts to what the meaning is. And then I take those and I try to build on my own thoughts. But I can't say I understand it all. No.
I know there's a lot of versions, like the New Living Translation and then ESV and a lot of King James Bible. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll go from the King James and then do another version and I'll compare it. But even then, I'm like, I don't know what I just read.
It's difficult.
Uh-huh. So that starting up with those habits, the daily habits, I think that's what defines you at the end of the day. What are some of those habits that you've adopted over the years, aside from starting your morning that way?
Well, I think that, as I said, the discipline about how you go about things, and then the authenticity. I'll tell you a story about being authentic. When I was starting out in business, this is a young age, I was trying to raise money for Blue Rhino to start the business, and I was in New York and Boston, and they'd look at me and they'd say, "Now, where are you from again?" I'm this Southern guy up there talking with this slow-talking Southern accent.
You're like, I'm from down yonder.
It sort of set me back, and I was all concerned about it. And I came back to Winston-Salem and had a friend, Don Angel, who was working very hard to get, at that time, George Bush 43 elected. And the 2 of us went and had lunch with George Bush. And Mr. Bush asked me what I was doing, and I was telling him a little bit about my times in New York and Boston. And he said, "Billy," he said, "I can relate to that." He said, I just got my butt kicked in the New Hampshire primary. And said, my dad called me home and he said, "George, you're up there trying to act like you're some Ivy League scholar." He said, "You're not an Ivy League scholar. You're from Midland, Texas. You walk like it, you talk like it. And people are either going to like you for what you are, or they're not going to like you at all. But for God's sake, don't try to be something you're not." So I thought about that a little bit. Well, the next week, I had this presentation I was doing up at the 21 Club in New York. 250 people in the room, all these investment bankers and so on. And so I got up and I said, "Folks, I'm Billy Prim. I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I talk slow, but I think fast. Some of you ought to try it every once in a while." And so got a big laugh, and everywhere I'd go, they always mention that to me, and I tried to be that way from then on. I say, "Guys, I'm just going to, here's who I am. I'm not going to try to put on for you. Here's who I am." And I think it earned me a lot of trust and respect, because people recognized that I was going to be who I was. I wasn't going to try to flip-flop and be one thing one day and another thing tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being authentic, especially when I started this podcast, I was like, that's something I have to figure out what that is for me before I get started, because I want to put something different than what someone else is. But in times when things aren't going your way and you're wanting to put your trust in God, how do you prioritize it whenever it's like, it's not going the way it is? Like, it's hard to put your trust in God sometimes. Not saying that I don't do it. It's just some days I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen. And it's hard. It's hard.
It certainly is, and there's no guarantees. Nothing. God didn't say everything's going to be perfect. Moses didn't make it to the promised land. It's not. I've had several things that didn't work out, and what I try to do is look for the signs to say, is this working? Is this right? And I think that as far as it goes in business, that you have to pay attention and listen to feedback, especially from people who you trust and understand what you're trying to do, and pretty soon you'll learn, because most of the time you won't get the funding you need, that this isn't a concept that's going to work. Sometimes you just have to shut the doors.
Yeah.
I've had to do that.
I've learned how to do that, and it's a learning thing. I got to learn how to do it. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. It really means a lot. I want to say thank you.
Hey, well, thank you. Thanks for asking, and thanks for what you're doing here in the community to get the word out, but also to bring people together to have thoughts about how we can improve ourselves and our community.